Like that, the barbed wire as well.
You can't be jumping into the stands, Kenny.
So what about someone jumps in and hugs his ma, hugs his 92-year-old granny who's come down for a first game? And is that a 10-match ban if you jump over into the stand?
Does Tomo know about Mora and Curtis splitting up? Do you know who Mora is, Tomo?
Lucas Mora.
Join us on Monday morning from 7:30, where we'll bring you all the latest sports news and analysis on all the weekend's action.
OTB AM, Ireland's only sports breakfast show, weekdays from 7:30 AM, only on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
OTB Sports Radio. The Paddy Power Half Hour on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
Welcome into this Friday's edition of the Paddy Power Half Hour. We'll be looking ahead to the Manchester Derby, which is coming up this Sunday, live on Off the Ball with Brian Kerr and Stephen Doyle, exclusively on News Talk this Sunday afternoon. And also we'll be wondering whether Bournemouth can inflict some more pain onto Liverpool after their successive run of 3 defeats in 4 games. To join us, to look forward to all the games from this weekend, I'm joined by Phil Egan and by Enda Coll. Gentlemen, good afternoon to you.
Hello.
We might start with Liverpool, Phil, because they're out first tomorrow in the lunchtime game against Bournemouth, who they've got a magnificent record against, and all theory would be they go to Anfield and probably steamroll them and everything is back on track. But the last couple of weeks for Liverpool, what's been going wrong?
Well, obviously the worry for the 3 defeats in 4 competitions is the 3 defeats have also been no goals. They haven't scored in those 3 games, so that'll be a little bit of a concern. But I think if you could actually handpick a game for Liverpool, this would be it. Now, the only concern I would have is it's a 12:30 kickoff, and I know Liverpool replicate their kickoff time when they train, so it's something that Klopp has worked on. But there has been a few games where they're just a little bit sleepy at the start and eventually they work their way in, and I think that's what will happen. And I said it's a nice game. We know Liverpool at Anfield are a different beast, and that's it as well. Those 3 defeats have all come away from home. If they were at home, if they were at Anfield, you'd be a bit more concerned. But the FA Cup one, I don't want to be blasé about it, but I would throw it out, because if Alisson's playing in goal, there's a good chance that Liverpool still win that game. I think Adrian has become a little bit of a cult hero for Liverpool fans, but he's just not up to the quality of Alisson. Not many are, but you still need to have a better backup keeper. It was a late signing because Alisson obviously got injured in the first game of the season. So I wouldn't be too concerned. It's a big week though for Liverpool. So they've got obviously Bournemouth and then Atletico Madrid, but they win those 2 games and then what's gone on in the last few weeks is slowly forgotten about. Like, just look at the league table. Just looking at it there, 22 points. I mean, the only thing Liverpool have done wrong this season is they've been so good. Now people think that because they're not as good as they have been, that there's something wrong, but not necessarily.
And Nicole, what have you made of Liverpool? Have they looked a little bit leggy since the winter break?
I wouldn't say leggy as much as sort of blasé about the fixtures. It seems to be they haven't really come back from the holidays off the winter break yet. But I think, like Phil was saying, they're coming back to Anfield now. It's a different story. What will be interesting though is seeing the selection from Klopp, if he's going to prioritise the Champions League ahead of this fixture against Bournemouth. He probably should. I mean, we're looking at a game where Liverpool have always dominated against Bournemouth. I think in the last 5 games they've won. They've got an aggregate scoreline of 17-0. So this is a game where they should be able to get by with making a few changes. I know one of the issues that came up over the last couple of weeks, and especially in the Watford game, was the centre-back partnership. People don't trust Dejan Lovren, but this might be a game just to throw him in so that you have a fully fit team going to host Atletico during the week.
What do you think, Phil? How do you rotate here?
Well, there's plenty of time between. It's an early game on a Saturday and a late game on a Wednesday night. That's plenty of time to play strong 11s in both. And I think the biggest surprise for me was that he went for Lovren ahead of Joel Matip. And look, if Matip had started against Watford last week, Deeney still would have given him issues. This is what physical strikers do. Giroud did it the other night. I think back to even a couple of seasons ago when Liverpool lost at Old Trafford, Lukaku would just isolate himself on Lovren, 2 long balls, flick them on. Rashford scored 2 goals in that game. Giroud would go on to Joe Gomez. He did win a header against Van Dijk the other night, but it's quite obvious that if you're playing against Liverpool, you go to the other centre half because you're not going to get much change out of Van Dijk. So the worry when you watch Lovren play is whatever about being out muscled, because Deeney will do that to a lot of people, is he just has this want that he seems to think he has to go and get the ball. Sometimes, like with Troy Deeney, if he's got his back to go, let him take his touch. He's not going to turn and burn, is he?
No.
So let him play someone else in, you get your shape back, and if someone puts in a cross, you're there ready for it. But Lovren reminds me similar to somebody like Mustafi, where they see the ball and they just want to get it at the earliest possible chance. They just want to get that ball, and it's not a great way to defend. I mean, as kids, we were always told, like, stay on your feet, jockey, don't commit. But Lovren doesn't seem to take that approach. And also as well, in fairness to Lovren, and we saw this, we've seen this with Fabinho in the last few games, they haven't played much, so they come in and they're rusty. And Mane started at Stamford Bridge the other night because he's only coming back from an injury. So it is hard to get back up to that tempo and that rhythm, but I would be very surprised if I saw Lovren was starting tomorrow. But Klopp could decide, do you know what, he took a lot of stick, Lovren will prove everyone wrong, and he put him in again.
Maybe he's trying to play him back into form as well.
Yeah, and in fairness, before he got injured, he actually wasn't in bad form.
Yeah, well, Damien Delaney actually broke down Dejan Lovren's type of defending, and it's very much on the front foot style. So he was saying that there's a couple of variations in the defending, and Dejan Lovren very much he needs to win that ball first time, or he's gone. And
does that mean that only Van Dijk can play beside him then?
Well, you'd think so. Like you'd want that extra cover in behind just in case. It seems very obvious that, you know, you don't target Van Dijk, you target Lovren, but especially if they're playing Lovren alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's going to be up the field. So if you get past that one block of Dejan Lovren, if he jumps in and commits himself, you have all that left wing to run into. So it seems very obvious, but it's something that Liverpool will need to sort out if they're not going to get a replacement for Lovren.
Yeah, and just even think back to the Sarr second goal last week. Will Hughes plays that ball in and it goes behind Van Dijk, and Lovren should be seeing that danger, but he's actually ahead of Van Dijk, and by the time the two of them turn, they're not getting Sarr because Sarr has an abundance of pace and he finished very well. But that would be just something that Lovren does, that he doesn't see the danger as quickly as others. And I think at the start of the season, Van Dijk, it's always Van Dijk +1. Joe Matip finished the season so well. He was the one in possession of the jersey, and then it was Gomez and then Lovren. Sure, Lovren, there was talk he was going to leave in January.
Enda, make an argument for Bournemouth then. I mean, aside from maybe Liverpool having one eye on Atletico during the week, is there any argument to be made for Bournemouth scrapping for their lives now at the moment as well?
I don't think so. They're the type of side that you'd always associate with not having much scrap in them when the going got tough. If teams went at them, if they needed to get a couple of goals, they wouldn't be able to come up with them. So this is going to be a struggle for Bournemouth. Going to Anfield, if you're in the relegation zone, and if you haven't been used to in the last 3 or 4 years, like Bournemouth haven't, to being in a relegation dogfight, then it's going to be a struggle for them.
Phil, do you think this is a season where Bournemouth could go down? I mean, they've been short of goals all year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, they're in the relegation zone, and you know, they've had a few decent results. If they had held on against Chelsea last week, that would have been massive. Obviously, they beat Chelsea earlier in the season, and they've always been able to score goals, so that's how they get out of trouble. They do concede goals, but it's so tight in there. I think we've all accepted Norwich are going, despite that brilliant win against Leicester. And
but that still brings them back within two games at this stage of getting back out of it.
Well, Norwich have got 10 games left. They're pretty much going to have to win at least 6 of those.
Yeah, because they're going to have to get 6 points more.
They're actually in a better position, believe it or not, than Leicester were under Pearson when he got them out, when they won 7 of their last 9 games, and then obviously the rest is history. But Norwich don't have the talent that Leicester team did. But there have been encouraging signs, and obviously they're still in the cup. So I think it's Norwich +2. It was a massive win for Watford last week. So now Bournemouth, they're vulnerable, and they've always been able to get themselves out of trouble, but their fixtures are not easy. They're running. They play most of the teams in the top half between now and the end of the season.
Okay, give me a prediction, Enda. Liverpool win?
Liverpool by more than 2 goals, I would say.
Phil?
Well, 3-0 seems to be the Liverpool-Bournemouth one. So I think Liverpool to win 3-0, Mo Salah to score as well, which it's going to be his 100th league appearance, and he scored 69 goals in that time, so a chance to get to 70, and I'd be very surprised if that didn't happen.
Just before we move away from the Premier League champions in waiting in Liverpool, we won't get to talk again until after the Atletico game midweek. And do you think Liverpool are turning that 1-0 deficit around?
It's going to be really, really tough for them. I think, especially after the Barcelona game last year, you never want to rule Liverpool out at Anfield in the Champions League to turn around this kind of result. But Atletico are a different beast to what Barcelona are. They know how to finish out these games, whereas Barcelona, they did it against PSG. They if you watch, there was a documentary done for Barcelona that got inside the dressing room before that game, and all the talk before the game was negative. We don't let this slip. We don't let them get back into it. And then, of course, that's exactly what happened. Whereas Simeone will be absolutely drilling into these Atletico players. They are not going to score here. And we are going to, if Atletico get 1 goal in this game, that's it, I think. I can't see Liverpool overturning that.
Atletico's problem, Phil, might be trying to score that goal, though. They're very blunt up front.
Yeah, and I think looking back to the first leg, and that was made of Liverpool didn't have a shot on target, but Mo Salah had a shot blocked, which I don't really know how they judge what's on target, and it looked like to me it was going on target, but maybe it's because it hit a defender. It doesn't count statistically, but Atletico, as good as they were that night, they're not as good away from home. They concede more goals, and I get what Enda's saying, but we saw this last season. They went to Turin and Juventus turned it over a 2-0 deficit against them. I think Liverpool will just... It's probably a good game for Liverpool because it'll get the fire back. That, they're probably sick of listening to people saying, it's been a drop-off now. You've lost your first league game. And, yeah, it was a surprise. We knew a game against Watford was going to be tough. I don't think anyone predicted they were going to lose 3-0. But they win tomorrow. They move 1 win closer to the Premier League. And then it just sets up one of those big European nights at Anfield. And under Klopp, they've never failed in those big European games. They've never lost a knockout tie in European football under Jurgen Klopp. So I think you'd be brave to start writing them off at this stage.
Well, our football coverage here on Off the Ball is with thanks to Paddy Power, and we discuss betting over the next bit as well. Remember, for any information about responsible gambling, check out dunlewy.net. Now, one of our Paddy Power specials for this weekend is based around Liverpool and potentially a mini collapse, maybe with their focus being on the Champions League as well as the Premier League for the rest of the season. And that's Liverpool, lads, to win the league by less than 10 points, available at 8-1 on Paddy Power.
Well, depends on the Manchester derby. I don't think it's going to happen anyway, but if Man City win the Manchester derby this weekend, it's 18 points. Liverpool would need to have an unholy drop-off after they secure the league title for that to happen.
That's the thing, Phil. If they do win it, there's the possibility if they're still in the Champions League and they're looking at quarterfinals, semi-finals at that stage, they could just drop the ball a little bit. But what incentive do Man City have to pick up every point for the rest of the season as well?
I think the only thing is that the players themselves will have incentives if they want to get into Pep Guardiola's selection for Champions League, because we presume City are going to see the job out against Real Madrid, and depending on how the draw goes, City will fancy their chances of winning that Champions League. But in terms of Liverpool's run-in, they've actually got a few tough fixtures where we saw this the first season they got to the Champions League final under Klopp, and they did finish in the top 4, but it went all the way down to the wire because he started resting players. He started playing the likes of Dominic Solanke and Danny Ings, and they were dropping points. So there is every chance they'll drop more points. They still have to play City. City are going to want to beat Liverpool just to send a message for whether they end up meeting in the Champions League later in the competition or next season to say, yeah, well done, you've taken our title this season, but we're going to be top dogs next season. So Look, to go in under 10 points, I'd be very surprised, but I still think Liverpool are going to drop plenty of points.
Well, look, if you think that Man City can close that gap by 12 points over the last 10 games of the season, you can get that at 8-1 on Paddy Power. Looking forward to the rest of the games this weekend, lads. We've got West Ham against Arsenal tomorrow, which is an interesting London derby because Mikel Arteta had his press conference this morning and he was saying, look, after being knocked out of the Europa League, they've got to put a lot of focus on the league now to try and get into the Champions League places, which is likely to be 5th place. He thinks if they can get a few wins together, he feels they can go on a run. Really, they should be able to beat West Ham at home.
Well, they'd be doing an absolutely incredible job to finish in the Champions League spot at this stage. I don't think anybody has them as even a team that could get into the Champions League spot. I think Burnley are almost a better chance of getting into the Champions League spot this year than Arsenal are. They've been dreadful the last couple of weeks. It just seems to be that inevitable kind of drop. You had the bounce under Arteta for the first couple of games, but they weren't really winning games. They were just playing better. So it's just about levelling out now for the rest of the season. I think Arteta has been extremely, extremely naive, optimistic, what the word is there.
If they win, they're on 37 points and they've played a game less. Mm-hmm. Now, that game in hand, unfortunately for them, is against Manchester City. That was postponed because of the League Cup. So let's just take it that they're not winning that game. They're 5 points off 5th spot. And, they'll fancy the chance of beating West Ham.
Bear in mind the teams around 5th are not in good form at the moment.
Everyone's dropping points. Arsenal are not losing as many games, and it was a big disappointment to lose that Europa League game because you felt like that was a great result over in Olympiacos, and then they couldn't finish the job. And I still don't know how Aubameyang misses that chance in injury time. So fine margins, but no, they'll definitely get within touching distance. It's whether they actually have the quality, and the problem is at the back. If you're left with David Luiz and Mustafi or Socrates as your centre halves, you're in trouble. But Tierney's coming back. Cedric Suarez is close to getting into the team as well. Torreira is a bit of a loss, but I don't think they've used him as much as they should, even though he's played more than 30 games. That's across all the competitions, but I found the Nketiah inclusion ahead of Lacazette. I found that interesting. I thought it was just going to be a cup thing, but he's
liked him the last few weeks.
Yeah, but no, if they don't get into the Champions League, there's no way Arteta was expected to get Champions League when he took over because they'd fallen off a cliff under Freddie Ljungberg. It was bad under Emery, and then it got even worse. So he has steadied the ship, and it's all about next season for them. But he has to say that. But they're not going to finish in the top 5. But I don't think they'll actually be that far off it.
West Ham have struggled, Enda, and they've struggled particularly. Well, David Moyes has struggled with a few clubs now against Arsenal as well. Doesn't have a great record. I think the last 15 he's failed to beat them in games they played in the league. So it's a tough task for West Ham to go to the Emirates and win, isn't it?
I don't think it's too tough. They are starting to pick up a little bit of form now, coming into the right part of the season. Like Arsenal can be got at. There's definitely that. You can always take that and going into an Arsenal game, you can always have confidence that you can get at that back line. So do I think West Ham have enough quality in their team to beat Arsenal? Probably not on paper. But if, say for example, they can get the right balls into Haller can, if he actually moves and gets into the right positions, he can bully that Arsenal defence.
They want to replicate the performance at Anfield from a couple of weeks ago, won't they? That was pretty much the exact blueprint for playing big teams away from home. Yeah,
just defensively solid, get the ball out wide and get as many crosses into the box as you possibly can. What's interesting is how well Snodgrass is playing for them, because he wasn't really getting into the team under Pellegrini, sorry, name escaped me. He wasn't really getting into the team under him. He was just getting off the bench, and Snodgrass seems to be the star man for them at the minute. He's one of those players that he's used to playing at this level, sort of, so he knows what is expected at this stage of the season.
Good set piece delivery as well. Set pieces cause Liverpool problems, and Arsenal are actually vulnerable from set pieces, so that could be something that West Ham will try and exploit. But yeah, sit in. Declan Rice gives them that solidity in front of the back four, and then try and hit them on the break. Mikel Antonio is back in favour now.
He's playing well as long as he can stay fit.
Yeah,
he's huge for them.
Yeah, he's because of his explosiveness. He does suffer with hamstring injuries every so often, but Yeah, it was a massive win for them last week. Looking at the fixtures, they still have to play Spurs and Chelsea in the next few weeks. They have to play Wolves as well. I think if they had lost to Southampton, and as good as a result it was, there's so many issues off the pitch for West Ham. I mean, that game, the backdrop to that game was protest by the fans against the owners. So if they had lost to Southampton, it would have been toxic. It's bad enough at the London Stadium at the moment, but they've given themselves a bit of a fair chance now, and I kind of think that they'll be all right.
A lot of quality in that team still at this stage as well. Moving along then, Wolves against Brighton, and it brings us to one of our Paddy Power specials as well, and that is for Brighton to finish this season with fewer wins than last year, which was 9. It's a coin toss at 5-4. You've got the table in front of us, lads. How many more games are Brighton going to win?
Well, I was looking at their fixtures, and in their last 9 fixtures, they've got Wolves, Arsenal, Leicester, Man United, Liverpool and Man City.
You don't sound too confident about wins.
You're probably going to knock all those games off. Then they've also got Newcastle, who are difficult enough to beat. They've got Southampton, who are in decent enough form, but you could imagine they'd probably put it up to Southampton and Newcastle. But as for those teams that I just named, I can't see them getting any points from those.
Well, we start with Wolves, Phil, tomorrow. Tricky assignment.
Yeah, but Wolves are strange where you look at them last week, they came back and they beat Spurs. They've done a double over Manchester City, but then they drop points in games that you expect them to win. And I get what Enda's saying when you look at Brighton's fixtures, and we've done this before with Brighton, even when Chris Hughton was in charge, and you looked at their run in and you thought they're in trouble. But it's a dangerous game to look at fixtures on paper because you don't know
circumstance of the game when it comes around.
I mean, teams could have European competitions, teams could have a cup where they rest a few players, there could be injuries, so I think it's hard to look that far ahead. I actually did the same at West Ham a few weeks ago, and one of the only games I thought that they could win between now and mid-April was against Southampton. They did that, but now I'd have more confidence that they could actually pick up points against, and it only takes a positive result for Brighton, whether it's a win at Molineux, to get a bit of confidence, and then they pick up a few more points. So, but they're down, like they've a little bit more, they've got a point over Bournemouth. So like last weekend, I said if Bournemouth had won and held on, then Brighton obviously were down a step, but it's very hard to predict who's going down.
Yeah, it would have sickened Bournemouth, I think, as well, to have conceded. Then you get your meal and you realise that Watford have gone ahead against Liverpool, and the bottom of the table changes massively compared to what the live table looked at around 4:30.
Yeah, I think spare a thought for Aston Villa. They lost a cup final last weekend, but while they were preparing for that, they were just
teams around them doing damage.
They were working their way down the table.
Well, what do you think, Enda? Wolves obviously on a decent enough run of form at the moment as well.
Yeah, I fancy Wolves in this game. They've been absolutely flying. Matt Doherty's been brilliant for them over the last month, which is good for Ireland, just as long as he doesn't get injured. Playing for Wolves, that would be a disaster for Ireland going into Slovakia without him and Seamus Coleman. So if they can keep him in good form, Jimenez is starting to fire in goals, Diego Jota is starting to get goals as well. So they've got a real chance of finishing in a Champions League spot this year, or at least fighting it out to the death with Manchester United for that 5th spot. I think we spoke about Arsenal potentially getting Champions League. Wolves, for me, are going to be the ones battling with United for that final spot.
Is there any risk, Enda, that the games catch up with them slightly though? Because I know from Matt Doherty seems to be in interviews every week now, and he says they want to go as far in the Europa League as they possibly can. It's great potential experience for being in Europe again next year as well. They might mount up just in terms of games. They've been in action now since late July as well. Yeah,
well, like we spoke about this a few weeks ago as well, and it is a tricky one for a team like Wolves to balance those, but I do think they have the squad depth to balance a couple of them. I can't see them going to the final of the Europa League. The potential going through to the next round anyway, but they have at the start of the season they struggled a bit with that balance, but I think they finally found it, and they know how to get the best out of both teams when they're in the Europa League and the Premier League. So Brighton doesn't seem like a team that would worry Wolves going into this game, especially with Wolves at home. So I think Wolves are going to win this.
Just going to jump ahead to the evening game tomorrow then. Burnley against Tottenham. Every game seems important to Tottenham now. Another competition gone this week with the defeat to Norwich in the FA Cup. A real fight in their hands now to get into Europe at this stage as well. And the goals have dried up. The form has dried up for Spurs. And having to go to one of the most difficult away games in the Premier League, Burnley away, Phil.
Yeah, and this is the game where the wheels really came off for Spurs last season, where Harry Kane came back, scored. They ended up losing the game. Pochettino went off on one with Mike Dean, got suspended, and Spurs' league form just absolutely crumbled when they were actually in the title race going to Turf Moor last season. Yeah. They were, if they had won that day, they were within a couple of points of City and Liverpool. And I think Jose Mourinho will be absolutely seething from going out of the FA Cup, because I think he would have really fancied his chances of, you know, people say it's only the FA Cup, but Spurs haven't won anything for more than 10 years.
2008, yeah.
Yeah, the League Cup under Juan de Ramos. And Mourinho could have said, he would have been quick to point out, you know, I brought a trophy to Spurs, so that's gone now. And yeah, they just look vulnerable. And Burnley, we know how they're going to play. Funny enough, Burnley actually don't have a great record against the so-called Big Six, not anymore. But I just think the form they're in now, that game at Old Trafford where they got the win, and should have beaten Arsenal as well. Jay Rodriguez was a lick of paint away from giving them the win there. So I think Burnley, yeah, I would be very surprised if Tottenham came away from Turf Moor with 3 points.
What do you think, Enda?
Yeah, and I remember when Jose Mourinho first took the job, the talk around him was that he potentially could win a trophy. Premier League was sort of at the wayside at that stage for Tottenham, and people identified the FA Cup as a chance to win a trophy. That's obviously gone now. People identified the Champions League, bizarrely, as a chance for Jose Mourinho to win a trophy with them as well. And I don't know if you saw his press conference, but he basically said to the board, it's either we fight for the Premier League Champions League spot or we fight in the Champions League. I can't do both with this current squad, which is a ridiculous thing to say.
Crazy to say when Spurs were in the Champions League final last year. I know you can say that with the stadium project, Daniel Levy has not invested enough in the squad, and I think both Pochettino and Mourinho will be soundly able to make that argument, but there's enough in that Spurs squad not to have to say that we have to scratch a league game just because we're playing Leipzig away next week.
Yeah, and they have enough depth in the squad that they should be in the top half of the table anyway. You can't just down tools just because a couple of your key stars got injured. So the attitude has been incredible from Jose Mourinho in the last week and a half or two weeks. So there's a chance for Burnley to get a big win.
Let's look ahead to the Manchester Derby then. It is live here on Off the Ball this coming Sunday as well. It is the later game. It's the 4:30 kickoff on Sunday. And Phil, I can't think of too many Manchester derbies in recent times where it almost feels like there's little on the line here, because we have had, say, City in title races taking on their rivals, the potential where they could have won the league a couple of years ago against them. They were going for an unbeaten season and got overturned by United a few years ago as well.
Last season you had all the Liverpool fans cheering on United.
Yeah, in the middle of it, like an intense title race. Well, this time around, City obviously are just finishing out the season. They're going for cups as opposed to win the league. And Manchester United was still with a bit of work to do in terms of getting into European places.
Yeah, and it's going well for United, which almost spells danger, because I mentioned the Burnley game. So when Burnley beat Manchester United at Old Trafford, that was one of those low points under Solskjaer where you kind of thought, where's it going? Then they get the good cup run going. You know, they hammer Tranmere. Obviously, they got past Wolves. Now they beat Derby last night, so they're into a quarter-final. They're, after progressing in the Europa League, Bruno Fernandes has come in. He's made an instant impact, and there's a bit of optimism about. And nobody's really talking about Solskjaer's future at the moment, whether he's going to be there or not next season. But this could offer a bit of a reality check. City have won every league game at Old Trafford under Pep Guardiola. And you think back to the League Cup, the first half of the first leg, where City absolutely outclassed them. And
could have been any scored half.
Yeah, and United scored in the second half, but City took their foot off the gas big time in that one. But no, Manchester City just want to keep winning. And I think you'd have to make them favourites again. But this, as I said, is a good indication to all those people that have doubted Solskjaer, or all those people that think Solskjaer is actually turning things around. Sunday is going to be the answer.
And are Manchester United a better team than when these sides met in the Carabao Cup a couple of months ago?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Like, that City first half, they could have been 5 or 6-0 before half-time at all. And I do agree with what Phil's saying. There is a lack of nuance when you're talking about Manchester United this season. It's either disaster period or it's Solskjaer should be given the job for 10 years. And I think Rio Ferdinand's comments last night on BT after the win summed it up well. Like, he would have been one of the ones that get his contract signed last year. Now he's saying he can't see where United's streak is going to end. Well, it could well end at Old Trafford this coming week, or this coming weekend. United, when they faced City in the Carabao Cup about a month and a half ago, like, they were at their lowest ebb of the season. They were missing a lot of players through injury. Now they've got those back. The only real player they're missing at the minute is Marcus Rashford. So they seem to have got their ship together a little bit. Bruno Fernandes adds that little bit of dynamic.
Not to stop you, but it's amazing how we've changed things where you don't count Paul Pogba as one of the missing players.
That, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
just get used to not having him.
It's gotten to the stage now where Paul Pogba may as well not be a Manchester United player, because, I mean, he hurt his ankle, 6 months ago at this stage. He's played maybe 9 games this season in total for United. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but that's what it feels like.
A couple of games in between the injuries.
Yeah,
he played a bit against Newcastle, didn't he, over the Christmas break?
But I think it is a real pity for United, because it looks like if you got a player like Bruno Fernandes playing in midfield with Paul Pogba, then there's real potential there to have a brilliant midfield. But Pogba seems to be out the door. Fernandes has added exactly what we were talking about United needing, that last pass in between the defence and the midfield that they were just lacking against these smaller sides. And United are going to need that in their final stretch going into the Premier League. After Man City, I know they have Tottenham next week, but after that they're playing sides that you expect a team like Manchester United to beat, but over the course of this season they've struggled to. Whereas now, yeah, they have more confidence going into those games that they'll be able to break them down.
Phil, give me a prediction for Old Trafford then.
I still think City will win. I'd be thinking. I think both teams will score, but I think the one I'd be looking at is maybe a 2-1 to Man City.
Your prediction, Enda?
I think United's record against the bigger sides is quite good this year. Apart from that City game in the first leg, they've been pretty well set up against the bigger sides. So it's not going to be as easy for City this time around. I don't think. I'm going to go for a draw on this one.
Okay, that means 9-2. Our last Paddy Power special of today is for Manchester United and Chelsea, both to lose this weekend. Two of the teams in contention for the Champions League spots. Phil, you've already said there's a chance United lose to Man City. Is there a chance that Carlo Ancelotti, who will be on the touchline, he escaped a touchline ban yesterday against his old side Chelsea, can Everton turn them over at Stamford Bridge?
They can. I don't think they will, though. I think Giroud has made a difference for Chelsea since coming in, and Lampard was leaving him on the bench but almost forced his hand, and Giroud's come in with real point to prove, and obviously a place in the France squad for the Euros as well. I thought he was very good against Liverpool, physical. What he does, he doesn't have pace, but he allows the other players to run in. So the other night it was Pedro, it was Willian. Last week or the week before against Spurs, it was
excellent.
It was Ross Barkley and Mason Mount. So yeah, I think Giroud going in there has made a difference. Alonso's in decent form, and yeah, I just think that Chelsea, as inconsistent as they can be, and their home record isn't great, this will be entertaining. I think this could be, a 3-2 or maybe even a 2-2, but I'm still just leaning towards Chelsea, and I think they'll finish the season in the top 4.
Okay, he's scuppering that double. Is there an argument for Everton to win?
I do fancy Chelsea as well. Okay. Everton's good run of form under Ancelotti has been mainly at home. They haven't lost a game under Ancelotti at home since he took over, so away is a different story. I suppose Chelsea's record at Stamford Bridge hasn't been great either, so I definitely think there's going to be goals, which means the game's going to be a 0-0 stalemate, but I fancy Chelsea in this. They have a better midfield and a better attack than Everton, so I think eventually they will break them down, and they should come out winners of this game.
Okay, the guys are saying stay away from all the Paddy Power specials for this weekend. But there is, of course, the Paddy Power ACCA insurance for this weekend as well. Back as a free bet if one leg of your fourfold same game multi lets you down. Terms and conditions apply. It applies to all top UK, Irish, European and senior international football as well. And there is a max free bet of €10 per day. Terms and conditions apply. Check out Paddy Power's website for more information. We'll talk to you next Friday here on the Paddy Power Half Hour.
The Paddy Power Half Hour on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.